In Update 2.1, we got a total of 5 new ownable bikes, the ability to do flips and wheelies, as well as an alternative Porsche 911. And since it's become my mission to rank absolutely everything in Cyberpunk 2077, this video is of course going to look at, in detail, these new vehicles, decide which is best, and add them to the overall tier list. So without further ado, here's number 6. Bottom of the new bikes for me then is the Arch Nazare Kobold, and this mostly comes down to the design. This one has the same sort of demonic face as the Itsumade and the Melinamobile, but is pinker, with otherwise practically identical stats. A dream come true for some maybe, and going around wielding cocktail stick on this thing is certainly a look, but when it comes down to it, this is just another retextured Arch Nazare, and in fact the fixed horsepower of 170, same as the others, but marginally increased weight, is realistically going to make this one a tiny bit slower to accelerate, I think, because physics. Though for 68,000 eddies, it is the cheapest Nazare variant you can buy by a small margin, though at the same time, there's 3 other models you can obtain without spending a penny. So really, the only reason to fork out is either for completionist vibes, or again, if you're going for a very pink-themed Merc. Otherwise, you've got plenty of alternatives. And by the way, when it comes to endurance of these bikes, I did test them, just like the previous 7, to find again their stats were exactly the same. 1 shots to puncture tires, 2.2 dying night mags to explode, and just 1 projectile arm launcher. A shame that they couldn't make a single one of them just a little bit beefier for some variants, but there we go. Next up, by far the cheapest of the new bikes, is another variant of the Brennan Apollo, the slowest bike in the game, and one that always served better as an off-road specialist dirt bike type thing. Except, here's the thing with the new 650S. They've taken all the off-road features and pretty much removed them, leaving instead a cheaper than the rest sports bike for roaming Night City's streets. With a slightly increased horsepower from 94 to 99, it does boast slightly higher acceleration, but at the cost of its fantastic off-road handling, whilst at the same time still being unable to outpace either the Nazare or the Kusanagi, with just a top speed of 108 and a whole 5.5 seconds 0 to 60. I mean, literally, I was chasing down a Tiger Claw and they were gaining distance from me very, very easily. Still, gotta admit, I'm a big fan of this one's design, and it's actually the same bike that the NCPD use, which I think people had said before they wished they could own, so there we go. Of course, it's not just me and the community who like the design of this one. Apparently, the majority of Night City's bike jacker community do so too, seeing as this is the most stolen motorcycle in NC, which will be thanks partly to the design, but also the fact that a lower price tag means more will be on the streets, and they'd be more likely to get targeted, as well as the fact that this is more going to be the bike owned by your average citizen, so stealing them is going to be less likely to result in retaliation from some gang. What's more, the green light-up wheels do look really nice at night, and overall it's a stylish, cheaper, but ultimately less powerful machine. We finally also got more variants of the Kusanagi, aka the red Acura bike, which was easily the fastest in the game by quite a margin. And whilst the 2 new models only tie with that speed, they do offer alternative designs and slight changes in weight, which could marginally affect their acceleration. But mostly, this is just an alternative texture to look at when cruising around. The Akashita is the cheaper of the 2, 72k eddies, still 6 more than the classic CT3X mind you, and the model for this one is far more in keeping with the likes of the Itsumade. This taller backrest might make for a comfier ride, though, and I don't think the physics are this intricate, but realistically, this one's going to be a lot less aerodynamic than the essential bullet that is the Acura bike. But on paper at least, the stats are very similar. A top speed of 170, 4 second 0 to 60, and 14 second 0 to 120. It did feel incredibly sleek on the road, I must admit, cruising through traffic with fantastic responsive handling, and even being able to wheelie over sleeker cars if timed right. Though the best thing to pair with this quick acceleration is definitely Leica or Comrade's hammer, leaping across borders or with a little practice entirely from one highway to another. And it's also a great way to gain more airtime for all the awesome flips we can do now. And according to Reyes, Akashita is the name of a Japanese monster that hides behind dark clouds, which apparently totally fits here. I'm not sure how. Like, sure, it could look good leaping out of a cloud of smoke, but so could any of these bikes, so who knows. Also, if you didn't realize, you can now throw knives and axes from on board a bike, which is a very, very cool feature indeed. Whilst technically barely any different on paper, I think the Nazare Racer deserves this spot on the list for a couple reasons. Firstly, it is actually the lightest of the Arch Nazares with a carbon fiber design, so technically it should be the fastest, although again that wasn't really noticeable in my testing. It had all the standard Nazare stats, including the same fixed top speed, but I guess maybe it could accelerate a couple milliseconds faster. Kind of a shame they didn't at least buff the speed by like 5 miles an hour though, honestly. Second point then is all about the design. This is the darkest and most brooding bike in the game by far, and whilst not jet black like a true Mercman bike would be, I guess this is going to be the closest thing we're getting to the bike of the hero Night City doesn't deserve. Because much as the Mercmobile, which is actually that car's official name now, is cool, it doesn't have the nimbleness and traversing capabilities of a motorbike. So for the most complete Mercman getup, you'll want to add this to your roster of vehicles for 74k. Almost the most spenny bike in the game, but not really a tremendous expense from mid-game kind of point onwards. And just look how well those light-up wheels pair with a Ratter. I mean, that mostly is what secures this bike a high spot for me, to be honest. Just chuck on some dark, ominous biker gear, and go around brandishing that sword as some glowing red Night City demon. I'd say it looks great in street races, but actually, we can't ride bikes in those for some reason. But out of all the new bikes with 2.1, the best, in my personal opinion, just about, is the second new Kusanagi, the Peacekeeper. With the same top speed and horsepower as the Akashita and CT3X, but a slightly lower weight, it's the same scenario as the Nazare Racer, in that it should technically be a little bit faster, even if that's pretty much unnoticeable. In terms of design though, it remains more contained and sleek than the Akashita, though not quite as brilliantly so as the Acura CT3X, which, let's be honest, is still the neatest looking bike in this game. Still, it's a nice looking alternative, and to be fair, it's always useful to have a second, if not third model of the fastest bike in the game as backups, should any get blown up during police chases. As far as handling goes, this performs great not just on-road, but also down alleys and upstairs, aided by the use of wheelies. And it was cool to actually see just what places we can reach now whilst riding a bike. And overall, the updated bike mechanics are just really cool, with this one having the best combination of speed and design, though I would still say it is certainly not the most memorable nor iconic vehicle to come out of this update. That title, of course, goes to the new Porsche 911 Turbo Cabriolet. Not only a fantastic looking new car in its own right, but one that brings with it a little new quest. This one is bought from the Autofixer website for 73k, but unlike usual sales, this time doesn't quite go swimmingly. After doing this, the Shape of a Pony quest will start, where we'll be tasked with tracking down the new vehicle and its seller, after they reportedly vanished into the wind. This will bring us to the corpse of Johnny Silverman. Incidentally, the same name Crispin Wayland gives to Johnny.
Good luck, Silverman.
And whilst this man may be a pretty convincing Silverhand replica, they certainly didn't possess his skills, but trust a Silverhand wannabe to own a Porsche 911. However, turns out the reason he's selling it is due to a newfound obsession instead with us cracks, wanting to reinvent himself in purple, red and blue, and deciding a new ride is going to be needed for that. The problem is, the Wraiths seemingly got wind of this sale too, whom we can track down with Silverman's GPS hash, which, by the way, these random characters aren't entirely meaningless. They are in fact a geohash, which translates into coordinates, which when plugged into Google Maps leads us to the Porsche garage in Germany. Someone in CDPR clearly had fun coming up with that, and to be fair, it's a very cool nod. Anyway, in-game, this will lead us to some Wraiths just up the road, and taking them out, we'll finally be able to claim the car we paid for. Just too bad that Silverman won't get that new life instead as us cracks biggest fan. But just as well we recovered this car when we did, since the Wraiths were planning to respray this thing in colours of dirt and mud. I mean, talk about lack of design flair. And when this Rex Ridgway first expressed a desire to keep the car, he was told, "You already have a car at home." A meme that we could definitely attribute to the existence of Johnny Silverman himself. Anyway, finally getting our hands on this then, its stats are all but identical to Johnny's genuine Porsche. Same top speed of 150, same acceleration of 4 4-second 0 to 60 and 15-second 0 to 120, as well as the same horsepower. Though the Cabriolet is slightly heavier, which is interesting considering the lack of a roof. But again, same with the bikes, that doesn't really seem to have much impact on the overall driving. Although it could be a little bit better at smashing into things. And in fact, there was not one, but two separate occasions whereby simply driving into another vehicle, this car actually caused it to explode. Coincidence, or secret ability left behind by Johnny Silverman? Overall, I'd say whilst the original Porsche comes with a very nice, classic kind of look, the black and yellow of the Cabriolet, as well as the decal stickers, make it far bolder and distinctively more cyberpunk. A very welcome addition to the game indeed. By no means the fastest thing out there, but for sure one of the most stylized. And cars with a genuine backstory to them, no matter how small, often have just that little bit more character than those we simply order and wind up with in our list. So, just as with Johnny's Porsche, I named the Cabriolet the final entry to S-tier vehicles. Let me know your new thoughts on this car in the comments down below though, as well as the bikes. And I for one wish the bikes had had a little more variance in how they actually drive, but there we go. Do you have a new favourite, or like me, is the Acura CT3X still your go-to? Huge thank you as always to the supporters on Patreon for keeping the channel alive, and also go join my new Discord if you want to discuss some more Cyberpunk. Thank you for watching, I'm Bram, and I'll see you in the next one.